Well, good afternoon and welcome to Greer Chamber Live. And it's a program we've been doing for the last 3 weeks or so, and we're getting our local celebrities to come out and talk a little bit about their take on COVID-19 and some of the issues and successes that they're seeing throughout the community. And it's my pleasure today to have the Greer City Manager, Ed Driggers, as our special guest. Ed has been with the city more than 20 years. I'm going to turn it over to him to have him do a quick introduction, and then we'll start with the questions. And again, those that are present, feel free to send me questions via the group chat, and I'll be happy to get those as we go. So, Ed, if you don't mind doing a quick introduction, then we'll get started.
Absolutely. Glad to be with the chamber today, and of course your guests and members that are joining in on this call as well. As you said, 20 years or so here, 28 years in this business. One of the things that Mayor Danner and I have had an opportunity to talk about in recent weeks as we've kind of worked through this COVID-19 crisis here in our nation, in our world, in our nation, in our state, and certainly in our community, is recognizing the role that each of us have had, the mayor versus myself as the city administrator. What are those things that we are really trying to focus on and take a look at? Recognizing that as an employee of the city of Greer, I am appointed by mayor and council and report to the mayor and council and serve at the pleasure of mayor and council. My duties, responsibilities are for the day-to-day operations of the city. And so I have been concentrating my time and effort really looking at how we are, what we're doing is a continuation of business, how we are responding to our community and the needs that our community is having. But for me, more specifically, in that operational side of that. So, what you may or may not know about me in this particular instance, my role responsibility is making sure that our local government continues to operate as an essential service, and we're providing the highest level of service that we can to our community in a very difficult environment.
Great. Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And like you mentioned earlier, been here more than 20 years. Have you ever experienced a time that's similar to today? That's, looking at what a disease has done to the nation, and we're definitely feeling those effects locally and regionally. But have you seen anything like this in the past? And if so, or can you relate to something that you've seen like this in the past?
Oh, absolutely not. I've dealt with financial crisis over my career. I've dealt with employment crisis situations over my career. I've dealt with lots of construction projects. I've dealt with angry constituency. I've dealt with lots and lots of things over my career. We are, by our very nature, we plan. And we have plans in place for emergencies, and we have plans in place for how we develop as a community. But there was no plan in place for a pandemic. There is no plan in place for the large number of our businesses that are completely unable to operate at this time. We've never been in a situation that we've needed to close all of our public facilities and keep people from being able to use those facilities. So no, it's a learn as you go process. There are certain fundamentals, there are certain basics of emergency response that obviously we're using. We're trained in incident command, and we're trained in how to deal with natural emergencies, but to envision that one day we would be responding to and trying to direct operationally how we would react to a health pandemic. No rule book, no playbook, use your training, use your intuition to the best of your ability, and hope that you are making the right decisions.
And now, and kind of to do a follow-up to that question is, and this isn't on here, but it's related to it. What resources are you looking towards to help guide that? And I know there's the city council, the mayor, but are there outside resources that are helping you to guide some of those decisions that are made for the city?
Oh, absolutely. I'm fortunate that I'm associated with a group called the International City and County Management Association. That very group that I never really envisioned that I would rely on for feedback, for ideas, the ability to bounce back and forth what we're doing in our community versus what folks are doing. I'm interacting with colleagues in California. I'm interacting with colleagues in Boston. I'm interacting with colleagues in Tennessee, all through the Southeast. Many of these colleagues are friends that I've known throughout my career. Some of those are folks that are somewhere else that they're swimming through this just like the rest of us are. We have a group within South Carolina, the South Carolina City and County Management Association, and we're staying in touch with that group as well as we continue to say. They'll ask us, what is Greer doing relative to? And it may be question A, B, C, D. And so those resources are absolutely valuable to us because sometimes people think of things before you do. And sometimes we may enact something, or we may respond in a way that another community says, oh, I had not thought about that. That may work for us as well. What a lot of folks are doing doesn't necessarily apply to us. Many of the things do. And so you have to navigate. You got to navigate through all of that information. So at least you're able to come back and at least try to ascertain what fits best for our local community. But yes, those resources are out there, and we've taken advantage of those. It's been absolutely necessary. But you know, we're different in Greer, South Carolina than they are in many other parts of the country. But amazingly, we're very similar in our response to this issue.
Great. Oh, thank you for sharing that. And question, the number 3 that's on that list, I'm gonna ask it a little differently. But when you look at your departments, especially departments like Park and Rec, that you know, you had to make the decisions right off the bat to close the parks and look at the scope of what's happening when schools are closing. What do you do with the safety and that type of thing with kids, but also with people just in congregating in parks, that type of thing. Can you talk a little bit about those decisions? And do you have a strategy that comes out of the pandemic, and kind of an exit plan that comes out of the pandemic? And are there any plans in the near future to open up the parks, Park and Rec again?
Well, obviously, our desire is to be able to open all of our facility as soon as it is safe for our community for us to do that. And so let me spend a couple moments talking about how we've made decisions here of our response in the local community relative to what's happening in the state and maybe what's happening in the nation. From the very beginning, we have monitored. Before there was a declaration of a national emergency, we were monitoring and beginning to prepare for what we believed was coming our way. And I can certainly tell you that today, we did not envision that we would be where we are right now relative to what we thought could happen in the beginning. And so when you hear terms about, you know, unprecedented, it's unprecedented. We had no idea of knowing what our next reaction would need to be. So this is how we did this. We took our cues from the national declaration of a national emergency, and certain protocols were put in place, recommendations of CDC. For us as an organization, we address that first with our employees. We have now, and we've always had, a continuation of business plan, because for us, a large part of what we do is provide public safety. And so we know that when there are ice storms, or there are tornadoes, or there are hurricanes, or there are any type of natural emergencies or natural events, that we have a responsibility to make sure that public safety is in place. And so when there's this talk of what's called an essential service versus a non-essential service, as a local government service provider, all of our services are essential services. So that's why you see that the governor has never addressed local government in his declarations. So he doesn't give us permission to do anything, nor does he take that ability away from us. Their position all along in communicating with local government being counties, municipalities, special purpose districts, is that all of us have certain essential services that we have to provide. Now, again, as a community, what did that primarily mean for us? Public safety, garbage collection. What can you imagine that had we discontinued or shut down our garbage collection program, and what that would look like today at our curbsides if we had said we're not going to be able to go out and do that? But we know that there's still a risk that that could happen. And so from the very beginning, when we started looking at how we would respond, we started with our employees by saying, okay, who needs to be here? Who can work from home? Do we have folks potentially that may need to take leave for whatever reason? And that would be that would be compensated leave, that those employees would not feel comfortable working in the workplace at that particular time. And what we said to our employees is, this is where we are today. These are the things that we're doing to protect you in the workplace. These are the things that we're doing to protect our community. And we acknowledge that while we may issue this order to you today, that tomorrow we could get an order from the federal government or the state government that changes what we're doing locally. And so we've had to be very adaptive to that rapidly changing environment. And I think we did a really good job with that, because we kept our employees, we have 285 employees, we kept all of our employees informed almost daily as this would continue to happen. And so the mayor was involved in reacting to those things that, as a community, for the general health and welfare of our community, that is his responsibility. And through emergency orders that our city council issued, gave certain authorities to the mayor and gave certain authorities to me. And so, as I said in the beginning, he took that responsibility for general community health and responsibility, and my role was to do that organizationally, making sure that we continue to provide our services.
Great, thank you. That's a really good explanation, and I think watching the rollout, the information that was received via whether it was Facebook, email, phone call, we appreciate the information that we've gotten as well, and thank you for continuing to pick up the garbage too.
Yes, it was important.
Quick question about retail and restaurants. We're getting it's no secret anymore. Retail and restaurants are really getting hit hard. Is there anything beyond the information that's being sent out about the CARES Act? Is there anything the city's doing in particular that's helping with small business, with the retail restaurants in particular?
Well, we certainly know that from a cash flow perspective, this may be one of the worst times that our businesses in this community would ever encounter. And so we're trying to be very, very conscious of providing assistance relative to cash flow. This happened to come at a time that business licenses are due to the city. Business license is a large percentage of our annual revenue. Without that revenue, lots of our community services would not be available to us. So we rely on that. But we also know that it was coming due April 30th, 2020. And there were going to be some significant cash flow issues. So we made sure that when we did our local City of Greer state of emergency, that emergency declaration provides for the extension of all deadlines. And so while right now, today, that we know we have a large number, about 2,500 businesses that pay business license tax to the City of Greer, that those businesses have the ability that June 30th, that is not due with penalty. Any penalties are waived. So when we say we're extending those deadlines, yes, April 30th is the deadline, but starting the next day, it would incur a penalty for non-compliance. We did a 61-day declaration, emergency declaration, so that automatically extended those due dates without penalty for that additional 60 days. So our businesses now have to June 30th, not April 30th, to really allow them to get there. It's the actual language probably identifies that more toward the end of May, but by doing the 60-day declaration, we wanted to give the full 60 days from the due date. And so that's why we've extended that until June 30th. So we hope that that's going to be a big help to folks. And that also applies to our businesses that are either in accommodations, hotels, Airbnbs, whatever may be from the accommodation side. They have those exact same extensions, as well as from the hospitality tax side. All of our businesses that serve or provide prepared food and beverage, that those folks will also have that same extension. They work a little bit different from each and every person. Accommodations, hospitality is due every quarter. But we are extending that for 60 days, providing for that relief primarily so that folks can have cash flow that they need to continue their businesses.
Great. Well, thank you for doing that. I'm sure that's as favorable to especially the retail and restaurants as they go through trying to recreate what their business models look like for the future. And you go to June 30th based on the budget years, July 1.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. And we really are in good shape from that perspective. And we'll talk just in a few moments about what the economic impact is to the city as well, because there is an impact to our business as a result of this. But we realize that we do not operate without the successful commerce that's taking place in our local community. And so any and everything that we can do, we're going to be prepared to do that. And if that's extending deadlines, working with our folks, that we may see additional extensions because we don't yet know where this starts to shake out. We're seeing Apex information that's coming to us from the federal government, but is that going to be the Apex in South Carolina or in upstate South Carolina and in Greer? We're just going to have to wait and see how those things play out, but we're going to be flexible. Our city council has certainly identified that flexibility will be there. And so while our fiscal year may end June 30th, even if those are paid to us later, we have the ability that we can accrue those revenues back to the year that they were due to us. And so we've got ability to carry that as we would need to based on how long this crisis lasts.
Good. Great. Well, thank you for that explanation. And those that are viewing right now, again, if you have questions beyond what's being asked right now, feel free to just send those on the chat. You can send those privately to me, or you can send those out to everyone. I'll be happy to get those. You did answer one question that was sent during the last time, so thank you.
Good.
The number 6 is status of Streetscape. I was down there this morning. It looks great. In fact, I went as fast as I could down because no one. I'm kidding. I didn't do that, but. It looks really nice down there, and it looks like things are opening up. Sidewalks are getting done, but I didn't know if you wanted to just give a quick update on that. And also, how has COVID-19 either helped complete some of those projects or hindered completing some of those projects?
Well, construction in South Carolina is considered an essential service, and so we've not been impacted by COVID-19 relative to our construction schedule. Those employees have been able to get out there. Our general contractor has certainly provided safety means for his employees relative to social distancing, personal protection equipment, and those types of things. But the ability to be there and to operate, they still have that ability to do that. Our biggest obstacle earlier in the year was rain. We lost about 4 weeks of steady progress due to a really rainy season in the winter, and that was seriously jeopardizing our completion date, which is June 30th. This is an 18-month project. We have been on schedule for completion by the end of June, and we meet weekly to review those construction schedules, and we're on schedule. We made up for the deficit of the rain, so they did not need to ask for additional time, which they would have been entitled to, but they didn't need to ask for that. And a lot of that has been due, it's just been the circumstance that, that there's been less traffic, there's been less activity in the areas where they are now working, and so they've been able to work more rapidly. And so they've caught that time up. So we're scheduled. We're going to, we're very, very hopeful that we're going to be able to do our grand opening for our Streetscape on July the 10th. We are moving toward that. That is in place for us at this point. And so we are very excited that that indeed could be the opportunity that we're getting everyone back outside, enjoying our areas, get them into this space. But if the pandemic doesn't, if its schedule isn't our schedule, we understand that, and we'll step back and we'll do whatever we need to do to reschedule those things to a later date. Again, at this point, it's unknowns for us, and we're having to react to the orders that we get from both federal and state.
Great. Well, thank you. And the sidewalk on Poinsett looks so nice. It's they're doing such a good job.
Yeah, you can really see out there now how this thing will look as it's completed. We start installing landscaping in about 2 weeks. And so once that landscaping starts going into all the beds, it really will take shape to what the final product is going to look like. But don't get too excited about not having construction downtown, because there is a phase 2 to this project. And phase 2 will start immediately as they're wrapping this up. And that's us working down Main Street and Cannon Street to Arlington, and Jason as part of our garage project and as part of the hotel project. So we'll still be out there, but we will have shifted to a new area.
Well, good. And that just brings up to the next question is, what is the status of the hotel and the garage project?
They're out there. Both, you have 2 general contractors on the site side by side. General contractor for the hotel is there. You can see the footers going in. There's a lot of dirt being moved on that site. We mobilized for the garage this week as well. So their equipment is on site and their personnel is there. And both general contractors are every day moving toward getting those projects completed.
Great, that's exciting. It's going to be exciting to see that project come to fruition and on the next year as it progresses. So we look forward to phase 2 of the Streetscape project and also the hotel and parking garage. Um, the next question, I think you kind of you touched on it a little bit, so I probably will jump over that. And again, those that are listening, if you have a question, please feel free to chime in. But I'm going to put a little spin on this interview because on a more of a personal note, we know that you're retiring this summer, and we want to thank you for 22 years of service. And there's probably lots of proud moments, but is there one or two things that you can just touch on that said that this is something I'm so glad to see it happen while you've been as city manager?
Yeah, that is a really tough question. Over the years that I've been here, each of those accomplishments have just been so fulfilling. Not necessarily accomplishments for me, but accomplishments for us as a community. And so where we've seen investment being made in our community, whether that's Wade Hampton Boulevard, or whether that is the area south of I-85, or it's in our downtown core area, no matter where that investment has been made in our community, we know that it raises the bar for us, that it presents opportunities for us as a community that we would not have had 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. I've just had the good fortune to be here during a time that it's just, we've been able to take advantage of being in an extremely dynamic area. Upstate South Carolina has offered lots of opportunities. I don't believe every community has fared as well to the success of our upstate as we have. And I would like to think that that's to the strong leadership of our elected officials and the resources that they allow us as staff to have and to use so that we can go out and get things done. But I think a lot of folks say these kinds of things. If you leave it a little better than you found it, then that's success. I think looking back over the last 20 years, that from my perspective, from my point of view, that I'm able to leave it a little better than I found it.
Okay, well, thank you. And again, any questions that pop up before we wrap this up, but on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce, I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day and talk to us about issues that are affecting the city with COVID-19, but also successes like the end of the streetscape and the nuance of the parking garage and the hotel. We know we've had these conversations. They're going to be game changers for sure. And absolutely, the hope is that we'll get you back and do another grand opening after you're gone for a little bit. We'll get you back. But on behalf of the Chamber, again, thanks so much for spending time with us today. And we'll have this recording out on our Facebook and our webpage, and feel free to share it any way you'd like it.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to have been with you today. And I encourage your members as well to use the resources that we have. www.cityofgreer.org is an excellent place for resources that are affecting the constituency, the residents of our community, and visitors to our community as well. So the partnership that we have with the Chamber and with the city, it's strong, and we're very, very thankful for that opportunity. We want our business community to know your success is ultimately the success of us as a community, and we are going to make that a priority for our businesses to be successful and to help us all come through this issue on the other side, as difficult as it will be, but for us all to come out with opportunities to be successful going forward.
Great. Well, thank you. Thanks for those kind words. You're absolutely correct, and it matters to the Chamber for the business success, matters to the city for the business success, our economic development. I think Reno's on this call, and we're all in it together. But it's so refreshing to hear that come from you. And again, we want to thank you for being part of this program today.
Thank you very much.
Okay, take care.